Malcolm and Richard Jeeves are part of a dynamic that's been common to the HammondCare story. Generations of many families have had a wide range of associations with the organisation. Malcolm and Richard came together to mark the start of HammondCare managing the Dementia Day Service at the Richard Jeeves Centre at Turramurra. The centre first opened in 1989. Dr Richard Jeeves, OAM, had been a long-term GP in Sydney's north and he became a pioneer in dementia care. Today, Richard is 90 years old and lives in Jeeveston, Tasmania.
I was going to be a doctor ever since I was a little child, and when I left school I went up to the university and I had such a poor pass in the leave certificate I wasn't going to get into the quota. So I got a letter from Mr Selly, the registrar, to say that when I come back from the war I could do medicine, and I put it in my pocket. And then in 1943 I trained to go to be a gunner, and then I went away to New Guinea for 9 months, and I was 13 stone when I went there, and I came back on a hospital ship 9 months later, 8 stone. And I had 3 weeks after I was discharged in January 45, did medicine.
Can I ask you why, of all areas you could have entered or pursued, why geriatric medicine?
I think it was an accident, really. I joined my father's practice, and he'd been there for 30 years, so he had a lot of old patients. He had so many of them he couldn't look after them, so I found myself looking after old people, and I found that they were very rewarding. Old people are, they're not judgmental, you think they are, but they said thank you very often, right? So they're an attractive age group to look after because they are thankful or appreciative of what you do for them.
So tell us how the original Richard Jeeves Centre was set up and what it did, why it was set up.
Well, we had a number of day centres which were operated by the social work department, and we found in those day centres the odd person who's living with dementia was attending those day centres, and they were actually disruptive in that the staff weren't used to working with that sort of a patient. And so we thought perhaps we should have a separate section, and we were able to get a church hall in St James, and we had a day centre specifically for people living with dementia. And it turned out to be a success because it attracted a certain type of staff who were comfortable with those sort of people, and it paid off, so that's why we did it. And then we decided to build a complex with a day centre backing onto and adjacent to a hostel, so that people who are coming in for day care would come in, and then when they got to the stage where they could no longer be looked after at home or they needed respite, their carer needed respite, they could go through the building into the hostel, and they called it the Richard Jeeves Centre.
Richard, how have you viewed the quite remarkable progress in care, in knowledge, in understanding of dementia since those days?
Well, there's been a lot more of them. There's a lot more people who are living with dementia, and we've had to look at it and look at how to handle it. Progress has been made, but there's still a lot of research required, and I think it'll all happen in the next 25 years.
The partnership with HammondCare, which now has HammondCare running the day service at Richard Jeeves Centre, how have you viewed that partnership?
It started off initially when HammondCare got a number of domiciliary care beds, and they couldn't use them all, and they said, would you share some? So we shared their dom care beds, and this I think helped HammondCare think about more domiciliary care, and that's what we were advocating, so that the amalgamation with what we were trying to do and what HammondCare was doing was very beneficial to us both. But I've just been there today and it's a pretty good show. Obviously there are a lot of people there who really know what they're doing, and there's a lot of people who are enjoying coming there, and there are a lot of grateful spouses.
How does it make you feel to
I feel great about it, you know. I mean, not often I get paid to come from Hobart in an aeroplane just to talk.
Malcolm Jeeves began working for HammondCare just on 20 years ago, not following in his father's footsteps in medicine, but pursuing social work.
I think probably I thought in terms of medicine only because my grandfather and my father were doctors, and I was used to hospitals and doctors being around patients, all those sorts of things. But I met one of Dad's colleagues who was a social worker, Betty Smith. And in talking with her, I thought, oh, this is a really interesting area. I could work in health in this area as well.
Yeah. If you look back to around the time that the Richard Jeeves Centre was set up, there were not many training opportunities. Your area of specialty for Hammond Care, but not much training in those days, say for care workers.
Yes, there wasn't very much at all. In fact, now we've got Certificate 3, Certificate 4 vocational qualifications. And at that stage, there was a great need for that, and it was just beginning to happen through our education systems. People started to realise, yes, these people need more than just a few in-services. We need some national qualifications or vocational qualifications for people doing this work.
And people living with dementia then were more likely to be referred to as confused and disturbed elderly, and also likely to be in a psychiatric hospital.
Yes, I have a bit of a reaction now when you use those terms, but the first job I went into with the health department was, the title was Confused and Disturbed Elderly. And I understood this was because people were in psychiatric hospitals who couldn't be cared for in mainstream hospitals. It was regarded as a type of madness, a senility. And people tended to describe the behaviour because they often didn't know what the diagnosis was, and they talked about confused and disturbed behaviour without understanding that there was actually an illness causing this condition, and that people were only behaving in a way that reflected perhaps their frustrations with what was happening with their brain. They didn't understand quite what was happening, and like all of us, if we feel sad, if we feel agitated, if we feel worried, if we feel scared, we're going to behave in certain ways. So I'm glad that we've gone past that era.
Tremendous advances in knowledge, in care, in understanding. What was it that drew you to Hammond Care in particular?
I'd had exposure to a number of aged care organisations when I was in health and when I was teaching in TAFE. And to be honest, a lot of them seemed to be old and cumbersome and a bit behind the times. And then I was introduced to Hammond Care. And the thing that struck me most of all was it had a definite purpose or a mission. And that really shaped everything that it did. When I met Stephen, he was very clear about what the purpose of the organisation was, what they were doing. And as a consequence of that, they were very innovative. And that was really what struck me, the innovation.
It mattered to you that it was a Christian organisation. How have you seen that work out in practice?
It mattered me in the sense of they were my own values. And I saw Hammond Care as an organisation based on Christian principles and values that, I suppose in the words of Hammond in lots of ways, they really put faith into action. So it wasn't just talk, it was actually put into action. And their mission statement was about being passionate about improving quality of life for people. And I saw God's love, compassion translated into practice and really making a difference to people's lives.
You've seen lots of change in Hammond Care as well over the years that you've been working for them. Do you ever feel, it's not what it used to be?
Actually, I don't know if I feel so much that. People often say to me, oh, Hammond Care's not like it used to be. And it's not like it used to be, and it couldn't be, because policies change, people change, population change. We have to change to keep meeting needs. And that's where Hammond Care has been innovative, willing to take risks, willing to change. And I think one constant from my time with Hammond Care, and probably why I'm still with Hammond Care, is that it still has that essence of innovation and change. It's very willing to keep improving. It's very willing to say, look, we've developed these services, we've built this building, but I think we can do better.
One of the other roles that you have here is to conduct orientation of new staff. What is it about Hammond Care that you try to convey to them in those sessions?
I think it's the foundation of Hammond Care and our mission statement, and that gives us a sense of purpose and what we do and why we're here and how we do what we do. And I think that's very important, particularly in terms of providing care to older people, whether it's people with palliative needs or with dementia, in that people understand what our purpose is, what our mission is. And in essence, it's about treating people as people and making a difference.
Is there one particular person's story that you can relate to us that demonstrates in practical terms that distinctive?
I think being involved a lot with orientation and having an opportunity to work with people as they first come into our organisation. And sometimes I have people from all different backgrounds. I've had one person in particular was a high flyer in a government corporate sphere. And I said to him, how come you're doing this work? It's very different to what you've done in your life. He said to me, Malcolm, he said, for the last 15 years in my professional life, all I did was put people out of work, people that were really skilled, but I was told we had to downsize. He said, when they offered me a redundancy package at 55, I couldn't wait. I went and did horticulture for 12 months. And then I realised a lot of my clients were older people. He'd had a few personal experiences within his family. And he said he saw the advertisement for Hammond Care and he said, this is what I want to do. I want to work with older people. And he said that his last couple of years working for Hammond Care, working with older people, which is mixed with his horticulture, with their interest with people in their gardens and those sorts of things, he said have been the most satisfying years in his working life.
What a great story. Final question, Malcolm. Final question always in the profile series. Outside of work, what floats your boat?
Okay. Well, obviously I have a loving wife and family and children and friends and socialisation and just busy bringing up a family. But as my family's a lot older now, we've had a couple of our children leave home. Of course, there's more there time to pursue various interests and I love singing. So I find a really good counterbalance to my work is I sing in a community choir and I also sing in a male a cappella group where we sing barbershop style.
Including at the Hammond Care conference.
Yes. We had the barbershop chorus group come along and sing at the carers afternoon tea, of which I have to say they really enjoyed the responses from the people because so many of the songs that we were singing they were familiar with. And I suppose my love of that type of singing in barbershop is not only the fellowship and contributing to the community as a whole, but just singing in harmony and hearing all those four parts of voices, all singing as one, just transports you to another area. And in lots of ways, my time at Hammond Care and why I'm still with Hammond Care probably is because I think of that harmony and I just like those voices coming together. The experiences that I've had, particularly with people, are in line or will harmonise really with the philosophy and mission of Hammond Care.
Malcolm, geez, it's been great to talk. Thanks so much indeed for joining us on the Profile series.
Thank you.